How a code error created Bitcoin millionaires. Imagine waking up one day to discover that someone had created over 184 billion Bitcoins overnight, when the maximum limit set by the network itself was only 21 million. Sounds impossible? But it actually happened. A simple coding mistake, an almost imperceptible slip in the early days of Bitcoin was enough to bypass all the rules of the world's most secure cryptocurrency. And the most surprising part? This error went undetected for months. Now imagine being among the first to notice it, or better yet, among the few who managed to exploit this flaw before it was fixed. A very small group of people saw their wallets inflate in an unbelievable way, almost like magic. But what happens when a bug threatens to destroy the trust of an entire ecosystem? Bitcoin could have died right then. What followed was one of the quietest, fastest, and most crucial maneuvers in the history of digital finance. In this video, you'll understand how a bug almost killed Bitcoin, and how, for a few days, it created millionaires out of thin air. But did any of them actually manage to cash out that fortune, or was it all just a digital illusion? In the year 2010, Bitcoin was still a toddler learning to walk. Created in 2009 by a mysterious programmer or group under the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto, the cryptocurrency was, at that point, a niche experiment discussed only by cryptography enthusiasts, cyber libertarians, and a few visionary economists. Its value? Practically symbolic. Few believed that this open-source code, which operated outside government control, would have any real utility. But on August 15, 2010, something happened that could have put everything at risk. An observant user noticed that a single transaction had created no less than 184,467,430,737.09551,516 Bitcoins. Yes, you read that right. Over 184 billion units in one go. The scary detail? This went unnoticed by most of the network. To understand the magnitude of the problem, remember that Bitcoin's code was designed to never allow more than 21 million coins in circulation. This limit wasn't just a technical decision. It was the heart of Bitcoin's value, the reason why many believed it could become digital gold. And suddenly, that limit had been broken with ease. The error lay in a mathematical function within the source code. Simply put, a programmer failed to properly check whether the sum of values in a transaction exceeded the allowed limit. As a result, coins could be created from nothing, with no mining, no computational effort, and no real validation. The name of this historical event? The overflow bug, a technical term that hides a truly catastrophic flaw. In the programming language used at Bitcoin's core, C++, a number that is too large can overflow the memory space allocated for it. This causes unpredictable behavior, such as allowing the creation of trillions of coins from a single poorly written line of code. The fraudulent transaction was included in a blockchain block, the now famous block 74638, and for a few minutes, this error became an official part of Bitcoin's history. The community running the network nodes, still small and decentralized, was shocked when the problem was detected. At that moment, Bitcoin's credibility was at stake. If someone could create billions of coins with a bug, why trust its scarcity? Why invest in something that could be manipulated by technical flaws? Satoshi Nakamoto, still active in discussions at the time, acted with surprising speed. Within hours, he and other developers released an emergency update known as Bitcoin 0.3.10. This new version fixed the bug and, more importantly, performed a hard fork of the blockchain. That is, it created a new chain of blocks starting from a point before the error. The fraudulent transaction was removed, and block 74638 simply ceased to exist in the new main chain. Thus, Bitcoin continued on as if nothing had happened. But the damage to trust had already been done. Even with the quick fix, doubt lingered. What if there were more bugs like this? What if other backdoors existed in the code? Despite the scare, the incident demonstrated the Bitcoin community's resilience and its ability to self-correct. But it also revealed something more. For a few hours, people had wallets full of billions in Bitcoin. Did they try to use them? Did anyone manage to cash out before the fix? In the next part, you'll see what happened to these flash billionaires, how the network treated those coins, and what effects this crisis had on Bitcoin's future. When the Bitcoin community discovered the bug that allowed the creation of over 184 billion coins, time began to move as if every second was critical. Trust in the system was hanging by a thread, and every block mined after the error only increased the risk of solidifying the flaw in blockchain history. What followed was one of the most tense and decisive moments in Bitcoin's young life. Satoshi Nakamoto and the few developers maintaining the code acted almost militarily. In less than 5 hours, a new version of Bitcoin was released. All network nodes were instructed to urgently update to version 0.3.10, which fixed the bug and removed the problematic block. This technical measure, called a hard fork, essentially restarted the network from the last reliable point, ignoring everything that came after the error. But what happened to the Bitcoins created out of thin air? They simply ceased to exist. The address that had received the billions of coins was ignored in the new chain. In practical terms, that fortune was erased as if it had never existed. However, the question remains, who made the original transaction? To this day, the identity of this person or group has never been revealed. Some speculate it was an intentional experiment to test the code's limits. Others believe it was an accidental mistake by an inexperienced programmer. Some even suggest it was a malicious attempt to destroy Bitcoin's reputation from the very start. What is certain is that for a few hours, there was an address with 184 billion Bitcoins registered on the original blockchain. And although it was impossible to move them within the new chain after the fork, the existence of this record became a permanent ghost in Bitcoin's historical files. The 2010 crisis had deep impacts. On one hand, it reinforced the importance of public auditing of the source code, a cornerstone of the Bitcoin project. Volunteer developers from around the world began examining each line of code with renewed scrutiny. On the other hand, this episode showed that, as decentralized as the network was, it still depended on technical leaders like Satoshi to resolve crises quickly. Interestingly, the event also served as a stress test for confidence in the system. Instead of abandoning the project, the community united. Bitcoin's price, which was still below $1, briefly fluctuated but soon rose again, and continued its upward trajectory in the years that followed. Many experts consider this moment Bitcoin's true trial by fire. It survived a potentially fatal crisis and proved it could correct serious flaws without intervention from governments, central banks, or regulatory entities. Everything was done transparently, communally, and, above all, quickly. Today, more than a decade later, the infamous block 74638 bug is studied as both a technical and philosophical milestone. It shows how decentralized systems can defend themselves, but also warns of the risks that come with any emerging technology. And the most curious part? Although the 184 billion Bitcoins created were erased, the address that received them still exists in the original blockchain records, like a digital scar. And if you look it up, you'll see something unbelievable. A wallet with the largest amount of Bitcoins ever recorded, a true numerical ghost. But the question that lingers is, what would have happened if the network hadn't caught the error in time? In the conclusion, we will reflect on this what if, understand what it says about trust, financial systems, and the very concept of value. What if that bug had never been discovered? What if the 184 billion Bitcoins had circulated freely, being transferred, sold, or integrated into the emerging crypto markets? Bitcoin might have died before even turning 2. After all, what value would a currency programmed to be scarce have if it could suddenly be generated in absurd quantities due to a simple bug? The answer lies in the concept of value, its utility, its acceptance, or the collective belief that it represents security and exchange power. The 2010 bug was a direct threat to that belief. And it was the rapid, transparent, and coordinated response from the community that saved Bitcoin from becoming just another forgotten experiment in the vastness of the internet. This episode shows that it's not enough for a system to be technologically sophisticated. It must also be socially resilient. Bitcoin's value at that moment wasn't protected just by lines of code, but by people, by attentive developers, engaged users, and the conviction that the project was worth saving. And there's something deeply ironic here. The error that almost destroyed Bitcoin became one of its greatest proofs of strength. It showed that even without a central bank or supreme authority, a system can correct itself, as long as its participants are committed to the cause. Today, when we look at that ghost address with 184 billion non-existent coins, we see more than just a technical mistake. We see a living reminder that any technology, no matter how promising, carries human fragility within it. A single wrong line of code, a misinterpreted number, a forgotten check, and everything can collapse. But we also see something more powerful: the ability to learn, adapt, and move forward. The blockchain, often called immutable, had to be changed to survive, and the world didn't end. On the contrary, a new phase of Bitcoin was born, more mature, more audited, more respected. And you? Have you ever stopped to think how many systems we trust every day, banks, governments, national currencies, have gone through even worse mistakes, yet weren't corrected with the same transparency? The 2010 bug may have been a technical glitch, but the lesson it leaves us is profoundly human. Trust is not imposed, it's earned. If you enjoyed this story, leave a comment sharing what you found most surprising. Did you already know about this bug? Do you think something like this could still happen with other cryptocurrencies? Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with anyone who needs to understand that sometimes it's the error that reveals the true strength of an idea. And for more fascinating stories about money, currency, and the hidden side of the economy, stay right here on Enriching World.